So this is your guys' first time at the Rock.
Yeah, we finally found Smiley Rock, dude. There it
Smiley
is.
Rock. We passed it the first time. We did this trail, about a month ago, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
How'd you guys find the trail to begin with? I mean, where'd you go look that you found it?
Arizona Trails. I have a book, and I love to thumb through the book because I always look for the difficulty rating and the scenic rating.
And what was the difficulty rating on this one?
Well, the path that we took was probably level
What was
9.
the difficulty rating?
5.
No,
When Noni did it, it was a 5,
So you guys
and I
got a
was
5?
comfortable.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
The way you guys do it is like a level 9. I want to kill you both.
So we've had Corey on before, and we took him jeeping, did some rock hauling. Then this guy goes out, buys a badass Jeep, got the biggest tire here, and the guy can drive too.
Oh, thanks.
He's been doing it for 6 months.
Yeah.
thereabouts.
And he can straight up
I
drive.
grew up country, so, you know.
We take him down the nastiest part of this trail.
Yeah,
and
that was cool.
He just kills it. Did a really nice job.
Well, that and I
was
love
funny.
the fact that you're willing to do the comments and give us the background, give us the details
The
of what's
commentary.
happening.
Yeah, sometimes my commentary can be very colorful.
That's where we need to have you on staff.
Gnarly, you guys.
He took me on Elvis Trail, and I thought I was going to die because his Jeep went this way. I was like, Corey, your Jeep is going this way. It's going back. And I literally freaked out. And I was just like, bad idea, bro. This is stupid. I was so upset. I had anxiety. It was triple-digit weather. There was like rattlesnakes probably hidden in the rocks, getting ready to bite me. We had nobody around us. And I'm like, if we get in trouble, we are SOL. Because there's no one that's gonna pull us out. And Corey he's always so calm. He's always like my zen, and I'm always pretty high strung. I guess it's the Asian in me, but.
How'd you feel today?
I felt okay. I got out a couple of times, did some filming.
And Maggie put you back
And
in.
Maggie put me, your daughter is a rock star. She put me in, she's like, oh, he's got this. Just crawl, Corey, just crawl. Yep, and she's looking at the back tires. She's just, you got it. I'm like, this girl is very zen. I love her. She's a good girl.
We put her through a lot of different stuff in life where she just knows that if you just keep moving forward, it's going to work out. You know, like I say, if there's a problem, just hit the throttle.
You know, what I love about what you guys did, you know, last time I came out with you in the spring, I think it was,
Yeah.
right? What I saw was something that I haven't been around in a long time, which is a bunch of highly successful people that are just normal, right? Sometimes you get around successful people and they have this air of, I don't know if their nose goes way up in the air, but it's like my crap doesn't stink, and they think they're better than everybody else, and that wasn't this group. And then the jeeping and the crawling was like phenomenal. So I was like, dude, I'm all in. What do you got to do? And, you know, he's like, Aaron's like, well, you kind of got to have a Jeep to be part of the club. So I come home, I tell my wife, I go, guess what I'm gonna do? She's like, you better not do it. And next thing, a couple months ago, or you know, goes by, and I own a Jeep. But the story gets better because I bought this Jeep, and you know, it wasn't kind of built the way I wanted. It was a used Jeep.
Yeah, I remember you're sending me picture after picture. What about this one? What about that one? What about that
Yeah.
one? We're picking them apart, and then one day you're just like, here's a picture of my Jeep. Well, shit, I never even got to critique it.
Yeah.
At all.
So
Is it the black one?
Yeah,
Black
the black one, the 2-door, 5-speed or whatever. So then I was gonna like take it to the off-road place to kind of add all the stuff that I wanted. And I get there, and you know, he's like, well, what do you want to do? And then they had this like kind of show Jeep, like this really cool, you know, red Jeep with big tires. And I was like, well, I just want to build it like that. He goes, well, why don't you just buy this one? It's for sale. And it was the owner's car, and he'd had it for 3 or 4 years. He took it to SEMA a couple times. And so then we kind of haggled on price, and next thing I know, I bought another Jeep. So I had 2 Jeeps. Luckily, I have a daughter that turned 16, so I said, guess what, honey? You know,
No,
a 16-year-old getting a cool Jeep.
Luckily.
Dude, he came home and he's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, babe. We could sell this black one, and we could probably make money on it. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then a week later, he's like, well, Faith really wants the Jeep. I'm like, we are not giving a 16-year-old this stick shift Jeep. She's already got the Kia Sorento. It's paid for. This is it. And yeah.
Have you
she
taken her
won.
out on trail yet?
Yeah, man. We did
Right on.
Montana Mountain on Sunday, and she did
That's
it all
awesome.
by herself. She had her friends, her
How
brother.
did she do with the switch? How did she handle the switchbacks?
Like a champ.
That's awesome, especially
Yeah.
a standard transmission Jeep
Yeah.
and a 16-year-old climbing up those switchbacks. They
Yeah.
can be a little bit.
Yeah.
That's
Intimidating,
good that
yeah.
you guys put her in a manual
That's awesome.
transmission
Her and your
vehicle.
girls would get along just
She'll be able to
dandy.
drive
They're-
anything,
Yeah.
you know? It's like,
Absolutely.
you know, we try to raise our kids just like a lot about life, you know? So you got to give them opportunities to fail, make mistakes. Even in my business life, I think my biggest wins came from my biggest failures. You know, just learning how to fail and just accepting as failure is par for the course. If you're not failing, you're probably not trying hard enough. You know, and really to look at failure as not as true failure, but as, hey, this is how I'm not supposed to do it. I think that's how I've always looked at my business life as well, is just don't be afraid of failure. The quicker you get there, the more successful you can be if you just are willing to try and put yourself out there.
Well, I like how balls out you go into things just like this Jeep situation. I did comment to the guys after I seen you sending videos and how you're notating things on that video of what Corey's doing. But when you think about this, like you went out when you were in already outfitted Jeeps. You were already built for that kind of purpose.
Yeah.
And you saw what they could do, and you thought, all I gotta do is go buy the Jeep.
Yeah.
And I can go do that stuff. And you decide to just do it. Too often people don't jump into life like that. And I can imagine that's exactly how you built your investment business. I love the fact that, one, you're pissed, he's jumping into that, you're sitting here explaining to you, you're giving me the stink eye, but you're out here.
Yes.
And you're finding
do love it.
finding the trails with
And
it.
she loves
I
it too.
actually
Yeah.
love
And
it. I'm glad we have it.
Well, you guys are invited every single time.
Thank
Come
you.
along, be part of it, hang with us. That it's a blast to have more people. In fact, I want to be able to roll up to a place like this with a line of Jeeps so dang long, and it looked like Burning Man.
Yeah.
Wherever we
buddy.
roll. So that hopefully is going to come. But so we've talked about it before, but I really want to share with people this story with respect to the Kahuna investments.
Yeah.
So, you know, we met at that mastermind group. You have to stand in front of people for the first time. You got business leaders in there, and you know, it's one thing to be. They say, you know, you're the average income. You're the 3 people you hang out with the most.
Yeah.
I stepped into that room because I'm like, I want to be the average income of these freaking 300 people I'm stepping in here with.
Yeah.
And there's some ball
There were some
busting,
big-
hard hitting sons of
Yeah.
bitches,
Big
and you
guys
can
there.
hear the clank of the balls as they walk through the dang corridors of the hotels, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm in there, and now I've got to get real in front of this group. And I know that I had a lot of problems, and I had to be able to lay out there. Here's the problems I got in my business. Help me out. And you were the first one to back me up. People got kind of actually critical in the wrong way, and you set them all straight. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I like this guy. And then I remember you said, like, I don't know if we're voting for him in here, but mother effer, you got my vote. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's badass. And so that's where we became friends. And then Shelley,
Yeah.
I remember we were at one of the events and you couldn't find Corey. You just came and sat by me. And finally he texted me, I'm sitting by Chapman. Then you wandered your way over there. That's awesome. So I appreciate the friendship, but I always wondered back there, I was like, Kahuna Investments, that's a really interesting name. At first I'm like, why the hell would he come up with Kahuna Investments? So share the story.
Yeah, it's a great story, man. So, gosh, 19 years ago,
20, baby. 20.
almost 20, my life changed forever. First of all, I met my wife 20 years ago, and she believed in me when no one else would. I was a used car salesman. You know, I
I
wasn't.
just got to say, when I first met you guys, I thought that was your assistant.
Yeah.
I was like, he's bringing his assistant to the meetings.
I was dressed all appropriate. I guess.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I wasn't voted most likely to succeed, but 18 years ago, my mom was married to this man named Bruce, and I call him Bruce Wayne. He wasn't Batman, but he was loaded. He was the richest person at that time that I'd ever met. And come to find out, he has a home in Hawaii. And my mom's married to him, so we're still boyfriend and girlfriend. And my mom looks at me behind the car one day and she goes, honey, would you like to go to Hawaii with us?
Yes, please.
And I'm like, are you paying? Because like, I ain't got no
We're
money.
broke.
We broke. So we get to Hawaii and Bruce has a house right on the beach. I mean, and it's on a cove. And so me and Shelley wake up 5 o'clock in the morning. we get on the beach and we start walking the cove. And would you know it? There's like a fresh water stream from the mountains that's rolling into the ocean. And you're just like, oh my God, there's a river that goes into her. And then we keep walking this cove and we get to the very point. And then we sit there and the sun starts coming up. And at that moment in time, you know, I was really frustrated with my life. I was actually, at that point in time, I was a restaurant manager. Shelley had told me I had to get a real job that was like dependable. And so I quit my car job and I got a job as a restaurant manager. That's when she really never saw me, right? I was just working, you know, 70 hours a week. But I always dreamt and believed that I really could be somebody. I always wanted to be somebody. And here I am in this amazing place, the sun's coming up, and I swear to God, me and Shelley were hand in hand, and it was like the shackles of life and the weight of life had just receded and fell down. And for the first time, I could see clearly again. And I remember looking over at Bruce's house, and I was like, what does this guy do? Because he had nice cars, fine art, and his phone was not ringing. He had no cares in the world. He could tell he was his own man. And I'd never seen that before, not like that, true wealth. And I was like, I want to figure that out. So I asked him, you know, what do you do? And he said he was in real estate and that he owned apartments. And I wish the story gets better, but it doesn't, because Bruce was a grumpy old man.
Yeah.
and my mom was real
Because your mom was spending his money.
And my mom was real pretty, so maybe that's the trade-off. But you know, my mom got me to Hawaii, so I don't care. But I left the island thinking that Bruce was the big kahuna, right? And then about 6 months later after that, I stumbled across the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And when I read it, my mind went right back to Bruce. I was like, oh, there was a real example that I knew it. I saw it. I saw, you know, the way he was working. I knew what he was doing. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so this is in 2004, I read the book. For the next 6 to 8 months, I'm telling you, I read every book at Barnes & Noble's on real estate ever. I mean, I read them all. I mean, all the greats, Robert Allen. I mean, I read everything. And finally, I was to the point, I was like, I've read every book there is. There's no more books at Barnes & Noble's. I'm ready. I'm gonna pull the trigger. And so I was like, well, what do I name my company? You know, because I'm gonna create an LLC. And I was just like, you know what? I wanna start with the end in mind. I wanna be the big kahuna like Bruce. And so I named it Kahuna Investments. I had no idea at the time that it would be so sticky, because when I go to events anymore, people don't call me by my name, Corey. They call me, hey, what's up, Kahuna? And it ended up being a real sticky brand. But that's when really the journey started. You know, I really I took out a home equity loan. I went through the yellow pages back when we had yellow pages, and I was afraid to call banks. I was going to call REO departments, but I didn't want to call banks, so I actually went to credit unions, and American Airlines Federal Credit Union. I call and I make this, ask for the REO department. I get this girl named Holly Lane. And Holly Lane sold me 3 homes. I bought them, I fixed them, flipped, I did all the work. I did everything wrong, but I made some money. And I started getting into real estate, right? Fast forward, I ran out of money. After I did 3 deals and I ran out of money. Then I had to I'm like, I gotta get a job, because you know, they're not going to give you, banks won't loan you money unless you have a W-2 or you have something that's a real income. And then I had a buddy that told me that if I could become a financial advisor if I would just pass the test. And that's the hardest test I've ever studied for, by the way. I made a 72. Okay, so I studied just enough, but I got my Series 7s and 66. I became a financial advisor with probably one of the best education teaching companies about money ever, and that was Edward Jones. And then we transferred to here in Phoenix, 2006.
From Oklahoma.
I lasted about 3 years until the market crashed. And when the market crashed, you know, what Jones had taught me though, was everything about money, the language, how to speak it, where do people with money hang out, and how to be articulate about it, and what their expectations were. And so when the market crashed, I found out that as a financial advisor, I had no control, none. and my heart left the business. Of course, as soon as my heart left, so did my sales. So I get fired, right? Get fired. And I remember getting ready to get, I went into the office at 8 o'clock, I had a meeting at 10, and my secretary couldn't look at me in the eyes, and I knew it was on. I was like, so I'm 2 hours, I'm sitting in my office, and I'm like, I gotta come home with a plan B. And that's when life changed for me forever, because I made the most important decision of my life, and I did it with no one else watching. And I'm telling you, I made a commitment. Everything that I am, personal commitment, more than, besides maybe getting married, but like everything that you are a commitment. And I made it to myself that I would do whatever it took to be successful in real estate, and that I would burn every bridge that I came across. And so I get fired at 10 o'clock, and I remember coming out like Rocky. You know, I was like, this, you know, I mean, that's how it felt for about 30 seconds, followed by sheer terror, because now I had to go pitch this idea to my wife, you know. And Shelley did me the best solid a spouse could ever do. I get there, and I'm sharing her my guts. I'm like, honey, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna go, and at this point, I don't even know how I'm gonna do it. I just like, I'm gonna go do real estate. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna figure it out. And Shelley looks at me, she's like, what do you say?
Get it done. Failure's not an option.
You said don't.
I'm like,
do not fail.
Do not fail. Like you do whatever you do, and you just win. Find a way to win.
And so I really went to work. I started off as a wholesaler. I'd go to the RIAs. Edward Jones taught me how to network, and I would go to the local RIAs, and I would ask the guy that's hosting the event, "Hey man, can you point out some of the players?" And he's like, "Oh, you know, the guys that are really doing real estate." And they're like, "That guy, that guy, that guy." Well, guess who sat next to him? Corey. Yeah. Corey's like, "Hey, where do you like to buy? How much rehab? What's your typical deal look like?" I'm like, "Oh, great. Well, I find deals like that all the time. Would you pay me a fee if I found you one?" Well, yeah. Well, there we go. There's another client, check, right? And so I just started finding deals for people, wholesaling and making my $3,000 fee, but I was in the game. Then I realized that if I just had some money, I could do these fix and flips myself. And so I raised my first piece of private money by accident. It was a guy that I played racquetball, one of my old clients from Edward Jones, but he didn't have any money, extra money that I knew of. And I was asking him as a friend, hey, because he lived in a retirement community. And I was like, hey, listen, surely you know someone in that retirement community that wants to have their money working a little bit harder. I can give them a note and deed of trust. And here's kind of my record of what I'm doing, because you know, I used all my guys' deals that they were fixing and flipping. They were my deals. I just never had the money to buy them. So I used that as my kind of my cred kit to show that I knew what I was doing. And so the next day he calls me up. He goes, "Hey, Corey, do you still want to do that 12%? And in the back of my mind, I was like, dude, Carl found somebody. And he's like, "Corey, you don't know this, but my home's totally paid for. I can borrow money at 3%. You give me 12, I make a spread. How much money do you need?" Now that was a big question. So I'm just like, you know, what do I say? I'm like, I'm just gonna go for it. And I go, "Carl, I need $85,000. And there was a slight pause. Yeah, okay, yeah. Where do you want me to send it? Just like that. And I raised my first piece of private money, and like my jaw dropped. I just like, and all I can equate it to is like going into the phone booth as Clark Kent. And I spun around that son of a bitch, and I was like, "I raised private money!" And it was the most surreal thing. And once I because that broke, I grew up poor. And it broke every limiting belief I had ever had about money. Because in my family, when you had money, you spent it. You never had any savings. We were never rich. We never had money. But yet I'd learned about money, but this was the first time people had trusted me with their hard-earned money. And it was just liberating. But once I smashed that, then I started, like, again, another set of scales came off my eyes. I'm like, well, how are other people raising private money? And it's funny, when you ask the right questions, you kind of can figure it out when you frame it up right.
Well, it's interesting. All the answers are out there.
Yeah.
You have to ask the question to hear the answer. Unfortunately, we suck at asking questions. So when you start to frame it out properly, the question popped itself up because they're all right there.
I'm telling you. And so I started to get really good at raising money. And shortly, in about probably seven months, I had about $3 or $4 million that I was raising and doing lots of fix and flips. And surely that would be like the epitome of success. But there was one problem, Aaron, is that I was doing it wrong. I had let myself, because I never had money, and here I was finally making some, but I was doing it at the expense of my wife and my family. And I get to 2010-ish, in the world's eyes, I'd look really successful, but I was a train wreck, man. I was just always working. I was tied to my phone. I wasn't living that Bruce life,
Yeah. Sunsets and palm trees.
Yeah, and one of the hardest part was this. Like, my son had, Friday, hey, Dad, are you going to be at my game tomorrow? And I look at him, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be there, son. But inside, I was like, man, I didn't look at these 3 homes, and I got to go look at them. So I'm like, I devise a plan. I scheme it. Like, I'll wake up early Saturday morning. I'll get all these homes looked at, and then I'll make it to my son's game. And long story short, I get there at the end, man. My son comes off the field, and to this day, this is a hard story to tell, man. Like, it really gets me choked up a little bit. But my son comes off the field, and he's crying, and it's one of those weird deals where, Dad, you promised, and I'm just telling you, at that moment, it broke me. It broke me something special because. And kids are crazy. They still love you no matter if you fail them. So he gets in the truck with me and wants me to go home with him. But that makes it worse because he's, the whole time. And I feel horrible. And I can't believe what I did. I drop him off. Shelley looks at me and it's like, you got to fix it. You got to fix it, right? And I'm driving in my truck, and I'm cussing at I'm like, you're a effing idiot, Corey. Why would you do, why did you do that? And I couldn't believe it. And I finally get to a point where I'm begging God to forgive me, and God just, and I finally find some peace, man. I find peace. I'm driving and kind of on my way home a little bit, and then something magical happens. Is I drive by this apartment complex, right?
Okay, babe, you're making me cry.
Well, I'm
Stop
trying
it.
not to get there, but I mean, this is like,
You gotta get this story
you're making me all
this is the
choked up.
story, man. And I've driven by it 1,000,000 times. And I used to say, I wish I could own an apartment complex. And in that moment, something happened where I changed my conversation. And I said, how can I own an apartment complex? And as minute as I said that in my mind, man, my brain started working. Like, it started trying to solve for X. Well, what do you know about apartments? What do you know about commercial? Where would you find that information? And I started finding, then all of a sudden I flashed back to Bruce. Bruce had time and money, both things that I wanted, but time, and he was doing apartments. And I knew right then that was the way. I flipped a Yui. I went all the way to Barnes & Nobles. I bought all the books on commercial real estate. Of course, the last book I read is the one I identified with most. It was written by David Lindahl. He became my mentor. And a year later, 2011, I bought my first apartment complex. Bought it for $3.2 million. I raised $1.4 million of other people's money to do the deal. Kept that deal for 5 years. And when I sold it for $8.8 million.
Wow.
And so I made $4.7 million net profit. And I've been living the dream ever since. And now that's what we do for a living is we buy apartments. We use other people's money. We raise, like last year we did $25 million in acquisitions. We raised like $15 million of private capital. And what a blessing, man. What a journey, what a ride.
So it's safe to say you were chasing the dollars.
Yeah.
To the extent that you put your word on the line, violated to chase the dollars. And that was, I would safe to say that was the best worst thing that happened. You failed your son.
Oh, man.
But it made you step in the direction you needed to go to be where you're at today.
Exactly. And that failure was a deep one. It cut. I mean, I've made mistakes where I've lost money on deals. and stuff, but that one is close to home, you know, and close to mama. And you know, I don't want to fail my family. I didn't want to be that guy. I want to be my kid's dad, you know, and
Be
so
present.
that one hurt.
Well, you don't remember it's interesting how we don't remember the big wins anymore. We don't remember the big paychecks.
Yeah.
We don't remember the one that, I mean, with the first time you get a 6-figure check, you think that's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
But you don't remember any of the subsequent ones. But you remember the times you failed somebody.
Yeah.
And
You know what's
and right now, I mean, it's like I was supposed to have my wife on a dozen vacations, but we haven't been able to do it because it's COVID stuff, and
Yeah.
I've got to take care of her.
Yeah.
She's getting her ass kicked right now in the hospitals, and your story right now is reminding me I got to do what I can to adjust my life to ensure that she felt like she's number one.
You know what I've learned to do? I think this is one of my biggest takeaways. I've learned to put my family first. I put my personal time, my gym time. I block out my Fridays. I set my phone on do not disturb at 5 o'clock. So if you're not one of my favorites, it doesn't ring, right? I've done that first. My family and who I am, what I want to do comes first. And then my business has to fit in the cracks. Has to. It's the only way I'll do it. And by doing that and being disciplined to do it, I now live a different life where I call it supplier of fun. What drives me, it's not money. I could care less two flips about money. But what I really like to do is give friends and people experiences, much like you guys are doing on this trip, because that's way more valuable and precious than a freaking dollar.
Yeah, we leave this life with two things, man: relationships and experience. I'm glad that I get to share both of those with you. Thank you.
So give us a book. You're well read, apparently. Give us a book that people should be looking for if they want to kind of follow into
Copy
that.
Your Way to
Quit jerking
Success.
off.
Corey's book, Copy Your Way to Success.
There we go.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. That one's just about my more detail of the journey that I just described. But honestly, one of the book that I love is Richest Man of Babylon.
Love that
Right,
one.
a tenth of everything I make is mine to keep. Learning to be able to master money. That's a big one for a lot of people. A lot of people don't know how to master money, and you really got to go to that next level. You got to be able to master personal finance. And why would anybody else want to give you any money if you can't master it yourself first?
Absolutely.
That's what I tell my children. If you can't show me 10% of your income, you're written out of the will.
Life's a journey, right?
is.
And the journey is the reward. And so I wouldn't take back any of my pain, any of the stories, any of it, because it happened the way it's supposed to. And my goal is just what I like to do is try to share that story as much as I can to as many people to give them hope, right? Because you don't have to be perfect. You just got to be tenacious and never quit.
Yeah. Yeah, keep shaking your ass like you're late on rent, right? Because
Rent's
rent's
due.
due, baby.
'Cause the
Rent's due.
We appreciate you guys.
All right, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.